So welcome everybody. We are here to try to explain and to do an interaction with you is what could you expect from Europe? Because there is always a big fantasy about Europe, and a lot of people in the regions, as myself, I co-produce some film with Egyptian, because there is a treaty of co-production between Egypt and France. There is always a big misunderstood about what we could expect from as a director and as a producer. But before this, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, please. Please.
دي ندوة عن الانتاج المشترك، وهو هيتكلموا عن ايه اللي ممكن نتوقعه كمشاريع عربية من الانتاج مع اوروبا، لانه ناس كتير عندها توقعات كبيرة عن الانتاج الاوروبي. وهو كمنتج انتج افلام وشارك في انتاج افلام عربية. بيقول ان في تريتي، في اتفاقية للانتاج بين مصر مثلا وفرنسا، بس هو يتكلم عنهم وهم يقدموا نفسهم.
So I'm going to ask Michel, first of all, Michel Zana, to introduce himself, please.
Hello. My name is Michel Zana. I'm a producer and distributor in France. I'm producing French and international foreign films, like maybe 1-2 films per year. And I'm also mostly a French distributor, distributing in the company Sophie Dulac Distribution, something like 10 to 12 features per year, including, of course, what we produce and co-produce. In the films I distribute are mostly art house, including documentaries, I've been a documentary producer for 6-7 years, so when I became a distributor, I always wanted to continue working with documentary, and I had this opportunity, and I couldn't give you the list of all the documentaries I've distributed because it could be a little long, but one of them probably was presented here 2 years ago, The Virgin, the Copte and I. And maybe the film was awarded.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is one of from a French-Egyptian director, and the film was released in France after I discovered it in Berlin, and it was quite a very good success in France. The film reached 60,000 admissions, which is not so bad for a first feature. So. That's it.
Translate.
هلخص اللي هو قاله. هو ميشيل زانا هو منتج وموزع من فرنسا. هو بيوزع افلام مع شركه اسمها سوفي دولاك، وهو انتج كذا، شارك في انتاج كذا فيلم عربي، وواحد منهم العذراء والأقباط وانا اتعرض هنا في الاسماعيلية وخد جايزة، ونزل في السينمات في فرنسا ودخلوه 60,000 واحد، وده رقم كبير بالنسبة لفيلم تسجيلي. وهو أغلب الأفلام اللي بيشارك في إنتاجها أفلام art house، أفلام فنية.
Also, a few years back, I've been distributing a film from a Palestinian director, Fix Me, from Raed Andoni, and that was also, of course, presented in festival, and it was working not so well as Namir film, but it was working good for a documentary. We did something like 20,000 admissions. Also, I just give one more detail, which is a little special, is that I'm distributing, but we are also exhibitor in Paris, and we have around 22, 23 screens, mostly art house, and this helps a lot the distribution work. Of course, having his own screens help for the promotion work and to show the film. So.
هو كمان انتج فيلم فيكس مي، ده فيلم فلسطيني اخرجه رائد اندوني، ما عملش ايرادات كويس زي الاقباط والعذراء والاقباط وانا، ده عملوا 20,000 واحد، بس كان برضو فيلم ناجح في المهرجانات. وهم عندهم 22 صالة عرض، الشركة اللي هو بيشتغل معاهم في فرنسا، فده بيساعد برضو في التوزيع واختيار الافلام وكده.
Valerio, because the main subject of this panel is co-producing with Europe, I think you have a big issues and keys in co-producing with Europe, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So I'm Valerio Caruso. I'm working as I'm director of a website on European cinema. The website is called Cineoeuropa. I will present you later. Which is an information portal on European production, co-production, and films actually being made and produced in Europe. And since 2011, I'm also working on a European program called Euromed Audiovisual, which is a not co-production, it's a cooperation program between Europe and the South Mediterranean countries, so mainly Arab countries. And before that, I was working also on the media program. Maybe I can present later on what it is, the media program, which is a big program to help European professionals to co-produce and distribute their films in Europe and outside.
فاليريو كاروزو هو مسؤول عن ويب سايت اسمها السينمائى، وهي فيها معلومات عن الانتاج المشترك وبتوفر معلومات حوالين حاجات ليها دعوه بفرص الانتاج. وهو كمان بيشتغل مع يوروميد اوديو فيجوال، و يوروميد اوديو فيجوال هو مش هيئه، مش بيدعم افلام، لكن بينمي شراكات بين الدول الاوروبيه ودول العالم العربي. وهو كمان بيشتغل مع بروجرام اسمه ميديا، او ده ليه دعوه بال كل البلاد الأوروبية.
And to complete, we have the perfect example today of what the world is. We have a Kuwaiti gentleman who work in Germany, France, Canada, and US. This is what the world is, especially in the cinema industry nowadays. Please, Talal, welcome, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, as Daniel said, I'm Kuwaiti. I'm actually Kuwaiti American, and I have been co-producing films by Arab directors from across the Middle East, but also Arab directors who live in the diaspora. So they may be living in Germany or France or United States. I have projects that I've co-produced in Algeria, in Iraq, in Kuwait, in France, and Germany. What shall I add?
It's not a bad resume. I think we will get any interaction with the audience later. We could ask questions about his experience to co-produce in the regions and with Europe.
طلال مهنا هو من كويت، وكمان هو امريكاني كويتي، وهو انتج افلام كتيره من مخرجين عرب، في منهم عايشين في العالم العربي وفي منهم عايشين في دول اوروبيه مش عايشين في بلادهم. هو انتج مع مخرجين عايشين في المانيا وفرنسا والولايات المتحده والجزائر والعراق والكويت والمانيا. وهو ممكن يجاوب على اسئله زياده لو حد عنده اسئله حوالين الخبره بتاعته في الانتاج المشترك.
So, before we go deeper into any details, I'm going to again thank you, the management of this festival, and it is not because they are in front of us. I've been traveling in many festivals in the regions, and the key issues is for young talents to understand what they can expect from Europe and what can they do in terms of co-productions. So thank you to both of you to have this, to do this, because this is a real need for the region and the industry. I'm going to ask Michel Zana to explain us how did he discover this documentary, The Virgin, the Copt and I, and how did the director or the producer came to him and to explain to you his experience, because there is some director here today who try to do their documentaries. You need to understand how you can reach such a producer and a distributor.
هو شاطر إدارة المهرجان لأنه في احتياج كبير عند ناس كتير مننا يعرفوا إزاي يعملوا إنتاج مشترك مع أوروبا، وميشيل زانا هيتكلم عن خبرته في إنتاج العذراء والأباط وأنا وميشيل.
Yes. Yes, the case of Namir is a little special. Namir is an Egyptian who was at school FEMIS in Paris. So when he began to work on his documentary, he has a French co-producer. I used to be a member of the Fonds Sud. Fonds Sud is a foundation in France to help French producer to co-produce foreign film. So it's now it's called Cinéma du Monde, but when I was a member it was called Fonds Sud, and I was there for more than 2 years. So inside this commission I discovered Namir's film, and I'm sorry, I'm mistaken, it was Avance sur Recette CNC, sorry. So I discovered Namir film in CNC Avance sur Recette. As he was French, he was applying like a French person. And from the beginning I was attracted by the story. It's a very personal story, and Namir was proposing to go back in Egypt and to go in his family village to look for the Virgin. And so from the beginning I was attracted, but that was not evident as a documentary and as the fact that it was a film d'auteur, a creative documentary. So I followed him during the shooting, I followed him during the editing, and I discovered the film when he was editing the last cut before presenting the film at Berlin. So still I was convinced by the film, but I was wondering how to distribute a film like this one in France. And I really believed in the film when I was in Berlin. The film was presented at Panorama section, and being inside the screening room with the maybe 300, 400 people reacting, laughing to the film, this is when I really believed that the film could have something with the public, and that it could be not a blockbuster with 2 million admissions, but I thought there is something to do with this film, and also I was interested by the story and what he was doing with the film in terms of directing. So that was the first reaction. Then I told Namir to present in Cannes in a parallel section called Acid, and because Berlin for a French distributor is important, but we don't have any. There is like 2 French critics who are flying to Berlin, so and no French exhibitor. So for me Berlin was interesting, but that was not enough. So I've been helping Namir to have the film selected in Cannes, in Acid, and this is how we were able to invite all the French press to the French screenings at Acid, and also to invite the exhibitor. And then I felt that we were receiving a lot of interest on the film, and this is how we constructed the release of the film. Everything began in Cannes, Acid, and then we have been making the distribution work.
هو اتعرف على نمير مخرج مصري عاش ودرس في فرنسا، وهو كان مقدم فيلمه في جهة دعم فرنساوي CNC. فميشيل كان واحد من الناس اللي بيقيموا الافلام اللي جت، وهو كان مهتم بالفيلم وقتها وعرف الفيلم واتجذب للقصه لانها قصه شخصيه بتدور في قريه في مصر اللي هو نمير كان جاي منها. وبعدين بعد كده شاف الفيلم في اواخر المونتاج بتاعه. بعدين الفيلم اتعرض في برلين، وقت ما هو حضر العرض كان في 300 واحد في الصاله في قسم البانوراما، وكانوا بيتفاعلوا مع الفيلم كويس قوي، فهو حس ان الفيلم ليه قبول جماهيري، فساعده انه يعرض في قسم اسمه اسيد في مهرجان كان. الصحافه الفرنسيه شافت الفيلم وكتبوا عنه كويس، ووقتها هيئوا العرض يعني عرضه التجاري في باريس.
Yeah, I will just add something. In the case of Namir, again, he was as a French director, so it's much more easy for him than if he was only Egyptian, because he took some money from the CNC, which is a good advantage, but he didn't have any distributor and he didn't have any world sales before Berlin selection. As soon as he got a selection in Berlin, everybody came to him. Of course, it was not 20 distributors waiting, but when you have a film selected at Panorama in Berlin, I can tell you that World Sales are giving some phone calls to ask for a screener. And this is how it really began for him. This is how it really began in terms of World Sales. And then in Berlin, we are many French distributors, like other European countries, and we were many of us discovered the film in Berlin. But it's not, to be honest, today in Berlin you have big films in competition. It's not because you're in Berlin that
بس هو بيقول انه حتى لو فيلم اتعرض في مهرجان كبير مش شرط ده يأكد ان الفيلم هيتوزع عالميا.
What Michel said is very interesting, because there is a lot of directors in the Arab world that don't know at which door to knock at when their films are complete. And this is also why websites like Europa or Euromed Audiovisuel, you have to communicate by anyhow about your films. And the best way to communicate is also to try to attract some press or some special website. And Euromed, which I will request Valerio to tell you more about this website, that's also a niche where you can get information. That's where I heard about your film for the first time. That's how I heard about other films that was in Ismaila before. This is the way to communicate about film for sales agents and people that could be interesting to buy it. So you don't have to minimize and who are those websites and try to get in touch with them when your film is complete or even when your film is in pre-production.
في مخرجين كتير عندهم افلام مش بيعرفوا يخبطوا انهي باب لما بيجي وقت عرض الافلام دي، فهنا بيجي دور ويب سايت زي يوروميد اوديو فيجوال. دي طريقه ان الواحد يبقى بيعرف ناس عن فيلمه، وهو دانيال نفسه عرف عن افلام كتير من الويب سايت دي، وافلام اتعرضت هنا في الاسماعيليه عرف عنها من خلال ويب سايت زي دي.
So Valerio, I'm going to ask you to not introduce anymore yourself, but to explain what you're doing with this website of Euromed. For example, Valerio will do an article in the website of Euromed about what's happened in Ismaila, which would be a good way for people abroad in Europe to hear before the film are complete about film. So could you explain, and maybe we can screen the website even if I'm not here to do your publicity. It's also another good way to communicate about films.
Yes, exactly. Because maybe if you allow me, then I will go to the screen just to show. Can I take a minute? Because there was no, at that time there was no website for to talk and about European cinema. There was national portals, national website, web magazines like Film Français, Cine Italia in Spain, Giornale dello Spettacolo. They are national. Or when you want to speak about international magazine, press magazine, trade magazine, you have Screen, Variety, which is Hollywood, and Hollywood Reporter, of course. So there was no a magazine talking about Polish films, Estonian films, beside the big cinematographies like Spain, France, and Italy, and UK. So which in Europe, it's, first of all, it's in 4 languages, so English, Spanish, French, and Italian, and this is a big impact because people want to read in their own language. So Italians like to read Italian, and Spanish like to read in Spanish. But we talk about all the cinematography, so from Czech, London, Wallonie, and so on. So we have a lot of material. We talk about all the films which are produced, co-produced. We have interviews. We have a lot of trailers. All the trailers that are made on European films that are released in Europe. We have the trailers, and we have film focuses as well. For example, this one it's a focus. So we interview also filmmakers and directors to make the promotion of the films. And so year by year, it's become a real tool for European professionals. I think it's important for all the professionals in the world to have a look. You have a newsletter, so you can subscribe to the newsletter and get. We have a weekly newsletter, so to get in that, to know what is going on Europe.
And it is free. It is free,
of course.
which
Yes.
is important to translate.
From this experience, when I started to work with Euromed Division, which is this program of
just translate what you just said.
sorry, yes.
هو ابتدى ويب سايت اسمها
سين يوروب.
الويب سايت دي بتوري عن الافلام الاوروبيه، مش بس لان كل بلد بتتكلم عن افلامها هي، بس دي حاجه بتجمع كل الافلام اللي اتعملت في كل الدول الاوروبيه زي بولندا واستونيا وبلاد تانية. ولانه في المجلات الغربيه الموجوده مفيش غير سكريبت وفرايتي وهوليوود ريبورتر، ما كانش في حاجه موجوده باللغات مختلفه، فدي ب4 لغات وفيها تريلرز للافلام واخبار عن الافلام، وفي زي مجله بتيجي مرتين في الاسبوع، بتصدر مرتين في الاسبوع ببلاش للي عايز يعمل يشترك في الويب سايت ده، هتجيله المجله دي فيها اخبار الافلام الجديده.
Thank you. So we started work on a similar concept for Arab countries. So we did this portal, which is Euromed Division, which is a similar concept to speak about Arab films and Arab talents which are made, which we produced, and which are distributed. So again, it's a lack on the region. There is no pan-Arab website talking and promoting Arab films. So this is probably some useful tool that you need to know and be aware of. I think as we're talking about co-production, when we are talking about co-production, we are talking about funds. There is this important database made by the European Audiovisual Observatory. You have all the available funds in Europe, and you can make search. For example, you go to France, you get production, you make a search, and you have all the funds which are available for production in France, and you can go to all European funds. It's quite useful to as a knowledge. And then there is another tool which is called Olfi, you know?
Yeah,
Olfi. I actually 2F.
It's the same as you?
No. We are partner, but okay. It's also to help co-production, and actually maybe we are entering in the technicality, but sometimes co-production is tricky in Europe, because when you get a fund, original fund, for example in Bologna, you must spend 150% on the territory. So sometimes it's very tricky, because if you get two regional funds, it's very difficult to spend more than what you have. So this instrument allows you to compare different regional funds or national funds, and to see if they are compatible between them. So you can introduce your data, your financial plan, and you see if your financial plan is compatible between the funds.
هو في 3 ويب سايتس هو اتكلم عنهم. اول واحده اللي هي Euromed Audiovisual. There, can you show the Euromed one please? دي حاجة زي اللي عملها بتاعت سينوروبا، بس خاصة بأفلام العالم العربي، وزي ما مفيش كان حاجة بتجمع بين كل الأفلام الأوروبية، دي الويب سايت دي بتجمع عن أخبار من كل العالم العربي. تاني ويب سايت اتكلم عنها اللي هي كوردا، دي فيها معلومات عن كل جهات الدعم الموجودة في أوروبا. If you can get the Corda one, the one I'm financing. Corda. دي فيها يعني معلومات عن بالبلد، كل المنح والجهات الدعم الموجودة في كل بلد أوروبية من دول. ثالث ويب سايت اتكلم عنها اللي هي أولفي، دي بتدي معلومات شوية دقيقة عن لو حد عايز ياخد منحة مثلا من اقليمين. في بعض الاقاليم مثلا لو واحد هياخد منحة من بولونيا لازم يصرف 150% من الفلوس في البلد دي، فيمكن ساعات صعب ان الواحد يجمع بين منحتين. فالويب سايت دي فيها معلومات شوية في المجال ده.
I know you must be a little bit afraid because this is a lot of information and the bureaucracy sometimes is very difficult to understand. But first, I think you need to find a good producer that believes in your project, and his job will be to knock at this door. Like if you want to translate this.
أنا عارف إن المعلومات دي ممكن تكون صعبة وتلخبط، بس أهم حاجة تعملوها دلوقتي إنه تلاقوا منتج كويس مهتم جدا بالمشروع بتاعكم، وده شغله هو إن هو يلاقي كل المعلومات دي.
For the Egyptian people who are inside the screening room here today, there is a treaty of co-production between Egypt and France. I'm not here to promote France, but this treaty of co-production was made under Youssef Chahine, and not many directors and producers use it. So it will be good that some of you can understand and read this treaty of co-productions, because there is not many treaty of co-production with other Arab worlds and Europe, and this one with Egypt and France. This is very interesting. But we're going to be more practical and ask Talal to explain about his experience after.
للمصريين الموجودين هنا هو عايز كلكم تعرفوا ان في اتفاقيه انتاج مشترك بين مصر وفرنسا، ودي اتعملت وقت يوسف شاهين، ومش ناس كتير عارفه عنها ومش ناس كتير بتستغل الاتفاقيه دي، لانه مفيش بلاد كتير بينهم وبين بعض اتفاقيات، فدي حاجه فرصه يعني.
So Talal, you put your hands in many things with co-producing with Europe. So we're going to ask you after to ask your questions, because a good panel is also an interactivity with you and ask your questions. So explain to us in details one of your experience to co-produce with Europe as a co-writing.
Yes. Okay, so I think the first thing which is important to understand, and Maggie, maybe I'll stop every minute or so, and then you translate, and then we go back and forth. So I think one of the first things to understand, what they were trying to mention earlier, is that there are different types of co-production. You have official co-production and you have unofficial. The official co-production is a more complex affair because it changes the legal status of your production inside of Europe. So if you become an official French film, it affects the legal status of your project, but it can also bring benefits, and so you have to understand what's the difference. And the best way to deal with that is for you to contact a producer in that country, so a French producer in France, who can better explain you all the details of what it means to produce with his or her country, because it will also vary between the different countries within Europe and bring benefits but also complications to be official.
هو في اول حاجه لازم نفهمها انه في انواع مختلفه من الانتاج المشترك. في انتاج مشترك رسمي وفي بيحصل بطريقه غير رسميه. اللي بيحصل بطريقه رسميه ده اصعب لانه في تفاصيل كتير، واحسن حاجه في وضع زي ده ان الواحد يبقى عنده منتج من البلد اللي هو هيشتغل معاه. يعني لو هتشتغل مع انتاج فرنساوي يبقى معاك منتج فرنساوي يقدر يشرح كل التفاصيل اللي لازم تعرفها.
Okay, now I'm going to give you an example of a co-production that was an unofficial French, Kuwaiti, Egyptian co-production, which means we didn't use any treaties. It was more what you would consider a cooperation or a collaboration. A financial co-production. Yes, that's right. I had a film whereby a French director was in search of his heritage, of his roots, and he was born of an Egyptian father, but he never knew his father. And what he did find out was that his father had worked in Kuwait about 30 years ago. So he decided he wanted to come to Kuwait to find out what happened to the guy. And the French embassy, they contacted me. They introduced me to the filmmaker. And after hearing his pitch for his project, I thought it was a very good project, and I agreed to work with him. And so he came to Kuwait. And by that time already, he had raised a bit of money from a French regional fund. And so my job was to kind of facilitate the shooting in Kuwait and also try to raise some money from the Middle East.
هيدي مثل على انتاج غير رسمي وتعاون في الفلوس اكتر. كان مع مخرج فرنساوي، بابا مصري ما كانش يعرف عنه حاجات كتير وكان عايز يكتشف قصة بابا. فالسفارة الفرنساوي في الكويت اتصلت بطلال وهو قابل المخرج، وبعد ما سمع الطريقة اللي هو عمل بيتشنج بيها للمشروع بتاعه اقتنع بيه وحاول يساعده. هو كان معاه المخرج كريم جوري، كان معاه فلوس من جهة دعم إقليمية في فرنسا، فطلال ساعده بأنه يحاول يلاقي له فلوس من الشرق الأوسط وإنه يساعده في التصوير في الكويت.
Okay, so just to clarify, the film is a creative documentary. It's like a TV hour length. I managed to raise some money with Karim also in Kuwait in the Middle East from a fund called Afaq. And it was let's say